Hi, this is Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts. I'm the host of the Marching Roundtable Podcast and the creator of MarchingArtsEducation.com. Thanks for being here at our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe so you can see exclusive live interviews, plus excerpts from podcasts, webinars, and interviews from live events. This is really the best way to find out what you might want to go back to our website and see an entire conversation. Thanks for being here. We hope you'll subscribe to our channel. Hey everybody, it's Tim and I am here with Michael James and Ira Jenkins, and we are going to have information that you can use because these guys are so great at all things visual, color guard, movement, horn line movement. That's what we're going to be talking about. Michael James, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm great. It's so wonderful to see you. And Ira Jenkins, how are you, Ira?
Doing great.
So I'm really happy that we are talking because I like both of you guys so much, and you're both so good at what you do. And so you're gonna get some information that's gonna be very helpful to you no matter what part of all this martial arts stuff you do. Ira, I'll let you introduce yourself first. If you just sort of fill everybody in on what you do and about your judging part.
Sure. So I am an adjudicator for not only the marching arts, but also for the winter guard environment as well. So you'll see me for the winter with WGI, as well as the local circuits, as well as DCI in the summer, and of course BOA in the fall, judging the visual captions, color guard, ensemble, individual analysis.
Right. Of course, you're a great designer and instructor and everything else too, but you are here in the role of adjudicator, so you got your judge's hat on today. Michael, if you'll introduce yourself in case anybody doesn't know who you are.
Oh, no one knows who I am. Michael James here from Orlando, Florida, and I design for a couple teams across Florida and Texas, and Michigan, and a couple drum corps, Phantom Regiment, Santa Clara Vanguard, and yeah, I actually judged my first show in almost 10 years a couple weekends ago.
Very
so
good.
I do not judges at all. So.
Well, I love that you're here. You're sort of here as our in the choreographer role for this conversation. But Michael, I think you're being like you've done a lot of very high profile work over the years. And if you're listening to this, everybody, you have seen Michael's work on the field. Some really iconic moments with Cavaliers, Phantom Regiment, lots of bands, lots of really fantastic winter guards, etc. So you've seen Michael's work. Michael, I'm so happy that you're here to talk about this. So I was talking to a visual judge about having a conversation, and her idea was to talk about purposeful movement, and that's sort of what we're going to talk about here today. We are now doing lots of movement in the world of marching with winds and percussion, and so when a group is stopped and they're just playing, and they're not marching drill or doing some other kind of movement, we have started adding body movement underneath that. But the question is it purposeful? Is there a reason that it's there? Why do we decide to put it in, and how is it being performed? So that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to read the description from the adjudicator that I was talking to about this. Here's what she wrote. Are groups doing choreography because it enhances the music, moment, concept, etc., or are they doing it because of a false perception that it will get more points in the visual caption because competitors are, or because they see drum corps doing it? So in other words, are they putting it in because they think it really enhances the moment, or do they think it's sort of like a required element they have to throw in even if their groups aren't ready for it or they don't know what they're doing, right? Which is sort of the second part of this. This person writes, the number of plie, shift weight to lunges and back to something resembling a first position was extreme when they were judging. I wonder how staff choose to add choreo, and is it simply motivated because the drill writer had some standing still? Does every moment warrant or need choreography? Or are they teaching actual ballet techniques? And so I have to tell you guys, we've all seen it. Like now everybody, I think they think we can't just stand there and play. So we're gonna put something in underneath it. But then what we see is everybody doing the same sort of leg out, turn your foot the other way, even though it's not a jazz movement, but we're gonna do it anyway, even though we're playing Tchaikovsky, and then we're gonna come back this way, and then they're gonna plie. And it's like it doesn't have anything to do with the show, but they throw it in. So which of you wants to start this? Take that and start somewhere.
I'll start. Well, for me, yes. Is it worth warranting doing it? Especially because when the kids are playing horns or whatever, when they're playing, there's only so much you can do with your lower body. And if the kids are not trained to do much more than a lunge or a tendu or whatever, or a plie, then what you can give them choreography-wise is limited. So when it's a younger program, I tend to pick and choose my battles, so to speak, right? So you're not going to just throw it in just because you have to move. Sometimes it can be just something just simple, just stand in second, and then bring your foot back in before the next step off. It doesn't have to be every single note, you're trying to cover it all. And I even feel that sometimes with the more advanced groups, sometimes it's just simply just okay to just stand there. You don't have to do it at every hold in the show. With that being said, you have to also make sure that your kids are being trained in somewhat at least basic technique of ballet and know what they're doing. Because I know I don't want to see someone, do 15 plies within, a 2-minute selection. It's not nice to watch that. But I also understand, they feel that they have to add something because they do see their competitors or other bands or whatever doing a lot of movement. But again, you have to pick and choose your battles, right?
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And, I've been judging quite a bit here recently. And again, the number of plies and weight shifts and lunges that I've seen over time is just, quite a bit. And I don't know, because I'm not the designer for the groups, I don't know if they're doing it because they actually think it fits, or if they're doing it because they think that that's what the judges want, or if they're doing it because they see their competitors doing all the things. I've also noticed there being a bigger push for, we're going to stand still and play and do these weight shifts and plies, and then we're going to run while we're not playing, while the other group is playing, and they're going to be doing weight shifts and lunges and plies, and then when we stand still, then we're going to do ours. And then we'll perhaps, all do something together when we stand still. I think that there are definitely tactics and strategies that the designers are using to help check the boxes that they think they need to check. The purpose for the movement and when it happens and how it happens, I think that's up to the designers to really decide, can they really justify what they're doing? In terms of the teaching and the performance side of things, I do question sometimes the level of training that the students are getting, because I do understand, as a musician, they've got to learn their dots, they've got to learn their notes, they've got to learn all these things, and they have to play musically. And then on top of that, we're now asking them to move as well as, the well-trained color guard is moving when we're doing these, layering these effects on top of each other. So I think that there's definitely room for growth in terms of really teaching, what the upper body has to play when we're doing the plie. It's not just the focus on the lower body. Or if we're doing the weight shift, what does that entail? What does that mean for the entire body? Not just make your body go that way or make your body go that way. There's more to it. So I think there definitely could be some more help and instruction with the musicians on not only what they're doing, what they're being asked to do, but how they should be actually getting through those types of asks.
Okay, so there's no doubt that staff members today think they can't stand still and play. Okay, I mean, like, there's no question. Listen, we've all been on the field, and it's like, okay, well, we're standing still for this sequence of counts. The drill riders haven't been moving, so let's add somebody. The problem with that is, if your group has a limited vocabulary, if you're just starting to learn the things, then you're stuck. So let's start there. Okay, say I have a group and we're starting to explore the world of movement, and I'm teaching them some basic good movement dance technique stuff. How do I not make it stupid and inappropriate? How do I make it make sense in the show? And how do I make it not seem like the same 3 moves that my kids know over and over? Michael, if you're in front of a group, how do you tackle that?
Well, the whole thing about adding movement into whatever they're doing, that has to be done it's part of your whole production schedule, right? So what you hope to do is that that moment has been designed so the kids can do movement, yada 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 yada. So it's not, okay, the drill right just sent off all this drill, and we're standing still here for 28 counts. What can we do? And then you have to sit there and go, okay, the kids need to do something. Maybe they only really move every 8 counts or something like that. So it's less taxing for the kids to learn a lot of choreography, but you still as time goes on, you're building their repertoire of what they can do. And then hopefully the next year after that, you can add more and more in a hold of like 28 instead of I'm only moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's more time for them to count through what they need to do. Then as they get better at it, then you can add more movement as their repertoire gets better, what they can do as individuals. I always feel like we have to build their vocabulary before you just give them a whole bunch of stuff, because you're going to spend more time cleaning the actual technical aspect of what they're doing, and just then the music will fail, or they won't be playing the music as well if you're giving them too much to handle all at one time when they're too young. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ira, if you're an adjudicator and you're watching a group, they're a young group, you can tell they've probably just started to learn basic movement. Like, I would assume it's better to see them do fewer things well that make sense than for them to try to put in a whole bunch of stuff that they saw Santa Clara do that they're not ready for.
Absolutely. We can't give students or performers credit for things that they are only attempting and not actually achieving. And when you look at the GE visual sheet, it says interpretation and enhancement of the music. So if they're doing things that don't really truly interpret or enhance the music, then why are we doing it? And even with the visual performance ensemble sheet, it says quality use of the elements of design. So again, when you look at these sheets, they pretty much tell you that there needs to be real purpose behind what is being done. And then on the excellence and technique side of things, or the performance side of things, the students have to have a solid performance, and they have to be able to achieve and demonstrate a level of truly understanding what they're being asked to do. And when those moments are layered, especially for musicians, when they're being asked to do things with their body while they are playing their instrument, that's an even different skill than playing alone or movement alone. So I think that there's got to be that level of understanding and dialogue amongst the staff with, why are we doing this? Is this enhancing? Are our performers actually able to achieve this at a high level?
Yeah, and I would tell bandmakers, think of this like the music, right? Like you wouldn't give a young band this ridiculously hard music to play. It's not going to sound good. They're not going to be able to achieve it. I don't think we apply that same thought to the visual side. Michael, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, sometimes I always think of it as quality over quantity. So if you're giving them less movement, less for them to, I don't want to say like less for them to think about, because they got plenty of what's going on in their head. But it's like, let them achieve, things that they can achieve, and then just build a vocabulary year by year by year by year. Because then you as a designer or the instructor, you're not, stressing yourself out because, little Susie over here can't even walk in step, let alone do the movement while playing her horn at the same time. It's a lot. It's a lot. I think quality over quantity any day.
And I would say too, when students are being asked to do things that they're not really trained to be able to do, and they're asked to do those things over and over and over, it just continually perpetuates the idea that they aren't really able to achieve. So to have the judges and the audience see some type of decline or some issues with achievement over and over and over, that may not be the best use of time and artistic energy.
Okay, so let's figure out how to do it better. So I always tell people, like, you need to have movement that matches your show concept, right? Like if you're going to put in a horn flash or a horns up or any kind of body thing or whatever, come up with something that's on theme. And like I always say, like come up with a few things and then scatter them throughout the show. So can that not be the case here too? Can we not come up with, here's things we're going to do with our lower body or even our free arm or whatever that are on concept? Like, Michael, is there a way to like come up with a few things and use them smartly as a way to start to build?
Yeah, you can always have like some kind of motif that you choose to use throughout the show. Like Phantom Regiment 05, we use the idea of grabbing the brim of a hat and just doing a little nod like that, and we use that throughout the show. Even though there was at one point we got to the closer and someone said, should we do that again? I'm like, no, I felt like we've already done it 3 times, and I'm like, I don't want to keep going back to that well. So it's just one of those things, even if it's just, just seeing their hand like this and going whatever, that's way more effective than always just kind of doing this or going back to the same plie, whatever. Yeah, you find, certain motifs that work within your program concept for the show, and you just sprinkle them. Don't, use gravy.
Yeah, and I've seen a great enhancement visually when groups choose their one or two small motifs and give variety with how they present it. Sometimes the entire group is doing it. Sometimes certain groups are doing it. Sometimes they're doing said motif at a faster tempo or at a slower tempo, or they're facing opposite directions but doing said motif. So there are different ways to incorporate the same visual idea just in different ways to help, first of all, increase the amount of times that performers are given the opportunity to do something. Hopefully every time they're doing it, there is an extra level of care and perfection that they're always attempting, so they can show consistency. But yet, from the audience and the judge perspective, there's variety in which the ensemble is presenting these ideas that actually makes sense.
Okay, so I have a young group. I'm going to sprinkle smartly created visual motifs into my show from time to time. Ira, as an adjudicator, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but as an adjudicator, you're watching my group. A few smartly well done things with correct training is going to get me a lot further than trying to do a whole lot and panicking because I'm actually standing still for 24 counts. Is that true?
Yeah, I think there's a few more things to think about, but in general, yes, we give credit to the ability of the students, what they're actually achieving, and we can give them credit for the what based on how they are achieving it. It's very difficult to give performance credit for what they are attempting but not doing well.
So what are some of those other things that you said to consider that I didn't mention?
Consider for?
Well, you said something about, well, there are more things to consider than just that. I know I sort of dumbed it down as I was asking my question. So never mind.
Yes, there's definitely a difference between groups who are well trained, but there are performance breaks. Performers have individual breaks, but the level of technique and training is still evident. And there is a consideration for the amount of layering and the amount of demand and the environmental challenges that performers have while they're being asked to do certain things. So those are all things that have to be considered when we are truly assessing achievement from an individual performer perspective.
Okay, so Michael, if you're standing in front of a group and they're young and they have limited training and they've smartly sprinkled, what else would you say to them to try to have them be more effective and score better? Is it about excellence? Is it about design? Like, how do we do it? How does somebody get there?
It's kind of about, for me, it's kind of about all of those things. Yes, you want them to be technically proficient in whatever you're giving them, but also there's an element of performance and expression that you want the kids to have. Because these days, I always tell, when I'm in front of a horn line, that their expression and what they bring to the table as a performer is not about you marching to your dot, because it is. It's not about you playing your horn well, but it is. But it also is how well you move and show expression when you move your body when you're not playing your horn. So you can't, give me some movement, but it looks like, you're parting your afro and it looks really like drab and, just awful, like you just don't want to be there. You have the sense of giving out energy and making the audience want to watch you just as much as the color guard performer is. Just like, drummers and horn players, you have to be just as expressive.
Yeah,
that makes me, horn line. Oh, when I'm watching a really good horn line enjoy what they're doing expressively, that's really cool to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially with some of the concepts that performers are being asked to perform, they've got to be able to understand the expressive qualities through the movement, even if they're layering that with their playing skills. And I think that's definitely something that has to be taught. I don't think performers, especially students, naturally understand how to be expressive or what to be expressive about. But sometimes I do watch groups and I question Do these performers know what their show is about? Do the performers understand why their visual designers ask them to do this upper body contraction and then lead with the head as they turn to the left? Or do they really understand why they're being asked to go down to one knee, then put the other knee down on the ground, and then slowly drift backwards until they're flat on their backs? Sometimes it seems as if performers are really struggling or really focused on doing the what without understanding why. And I think just like as musicians, if we understand why we're playing something, then we will have we'll probably do a better job of actually communicating that why through our playing. So I think performers need to understand visually what they're being asked to do, why they're being asked to do it, so that we can see them understanding why. One thing I like to tell my own students is you're going to have two people in the audience. There are going to be some deaf people and some blind people. If that deaf person is at that show, how can they tell what you're doing? Do they know why you're doing what you're doing? They can't hear anything. But what are you going to give them that's going to pull them in?
That's fantastic. And you guys hit upon something I think really, really key, everybody. I hope you were listening. If you didn't, go back and listen to the last 5 minutes, because this is the thing. Not only are you teaching them the correct technique to do it right, and it makes sense within the concept of the show, but then you've taught them how to perform it, why they're doing it, how it fits in. We can all tell. We can all tell the performers know why they're doing it, or if they're just like, okay, everybody told me to lunge here and put my arm out. Or if they understand this is what this means within the show at this moment within the concept. That's a layer that people have to take time for in this day and age. Otherwise, it turns out exactly the way the conversation started, which is, all right, everybody do a lié, shift way, turn, like we can see that it's just thrown in, right? And I can tell you, like, again, going back to the concept thing, I've had times when people have asked me what's wrong with the show, and I'm like, well, you're doing all this body stuff, but it has nothing to do with your concept. Like if you're supposed to be climbing a mountain in the middle of the snow and you're doing like jazz feet and stuff, like, and that makes no sense. Like figure out how to add, that was really happening, but they fixed it. But like, so make it make sense within the show. And can I just say this, can we all agree never again, unless I'm in the Madison Scouts and they're playing jazz, can we never do that thing where you step out and then you turn the jazz foot and you come back in? Like I see that in every show. Like that's like basic 101 bad body. Can we just like take that out? Michael, can we make that a rule?
Unfortunately, it's one of the, again, you have limited like what you can do when the kids playing.
I get it. Don't do that one. I mean, come on, everybody. Can we have another compulsory first body move that doesn't include that stupid jazz foot, please?
I understand, but yes, it's hard though. It's really hard. I get it. I try to stay away from
Tchaikovsky, Michael. Come on, we see it. I see it. Okay.
True. You're right.
I'm getting off my high horse. It's not helping anything. Okay. So, one last question. I saw this question posed. I thought it was very interesting. Is standing still not an effect anymore? Is that not an effect?
I think it is. Again, it depends on what they're playing and expressively what you're conveying to the audience at that one moment in time. But sometimes just standing still is an effect. Now they're playing like, all these they're running these notes and the woodwinds go. I mean, maybe they're playing something that's too hard for them to even think about moving their feet or their lower body. But that's when you can just literally just have them pose and maybe take their body off center. That's being still, but you're still shaping the bodies around the form that they're in. They don't always have to, be shooting their feet out 2, 3, 4, in 2, 3, 4, possibly 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They don't always hit every beat. They can literally just be a shape of their body, so they can concentrate on what they're playing at the same time. And then they just get right back to where they were, so they can step off to the next thing. So again, like I said earlier, you don't have. I hope you can't hear my dogs. Like they're so stupid. Okay. You don't have to hit every note. It can be just shape the body and be less stress for everybody involved, I think.
And there's nothing wrong with a clean, nice, tall, lifted first position with good core strength and upper body poise and control. That really sends a message. that not only can we do things on the move, but we take into account the importance of being able to just stand still and give greater presence, even without moving a thing, even without moving a muscle. So I think that there is that element too, that if you're going to move, make sure you look really, really trained, even when you're not moving.
Yeah, this reminds me of a conversation I had with Scott Chandler, and not to name drop everybody, but I recorded some conversations with Scott Chandler from the Blue Devils and you can find that course at Marching Arts Education. Everybody just search for that under our courses, and everybody should check that out. But he talked about, if you guys remember, I hope this isn't weird to bring this up here, but he talked about at the beginning, the Shakespeare show. I don't know if you guys remember that show, that at the beginning of the ballad, he had the color guard members just come walking out. Just walking. They weren't doing anything. They weren't dancing. They just walked forward. And of course, they were performing and they were carrying themselves. But he talks in that conversation that I recorded with him about how all the grief he got for that. They're not doing anything. And he said, well, they're about to do a whole lot. But like that just stepping forward in that simple fashion was a design choice, an effect into itself. You don't have to be doing leaps and turns and everything to create effect. But he really had to convince some people that was okay. And so that's my point. It's like, I think a horn line can stand still for 32 counts with great posture and play, and maybe that's okay.
Yeah, I would never tell an arranger to never write whole notes and to never write in rest in the musical score. So there's nothing wrong with there being a moment of stillness visually.
Yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense. Is there anything else about this that you guys want to say, or any other advice for somebody who's trying to figure out how to build this?
I think 3 questions that designers and especially the staff need to always think about when they're applying visual enhancement is what, how, and now why. And I think those are 3 questions that the performers need to be able to answer as well. And I think that will hopefully elevate the level of buy-in and yield the right type of expressive qualities through performance that the performers should hopefully want to maintain as they perform.
See, Ira, that's why you're such a great judge, because that was so clearly stated and that made so much sense to me. So I loved that. Michael, what do you want to say as we're closing?
He already said it. So just make sure that the kids understand what they're doing. And I always like to give the kids good analogies. So if it's something as simple as that they're reaching their hand forward, I was like, maybe you're trying to reach an apple or $1 million, so they really have a purpose to what their movement is, what's behind the movement, not only conceptually with what they show, but expressively, so it could get across the front sideline and up in the stands. So it's not, you don't have to be right there to feel them. You can feel them from far away also.
Yeah, I love it. Guys, thank you for having this conversation. I think we got some really helpful points in. Ira, Michael, you were wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Marching Arts Education is the home of the Marching Roundtable podcast. We give you access to the top marching arts professionals through live webinars, podcasts, videos, interviews, and online coursework. With over 1,000 podcasts and hundreds of webinars and videos, there are hours of great professional development for you and your staff. Sign up for a membership to Marching Arts Education to get complete access to all webinars, videos, and podcasts, plus discounts on coursework. Many directors are using professional development funds through their school or boosters to make these resources available to their staff. Imagine what you could do with so many great new ideas from the top professionals in our activity. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for our newsletter to find out about the latest podcasts, webinars, and new content. Find all of this and sign up at marchingartseducation.com.